wanted to welcome everyone to another virtual event that we're having, but this one we're really excited about. I know what's great is sometimes opportunities just come to you. And I received a wonderful email from Quay Reed, and she wanted to do a program with us. And she has a wonderful book called The Women of Yoruba County?
Yellowbusha.
Yellowbusha County. But she has spent so much work and really great research on documenting the great women of this county. And while the subject is in Mississippi, I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn here. And we all know women like she's researched in our lives, and I think it's a great resource. And then it's better because she has local connections here. She is in Stone Mountain, but also there's some other ladies on our call too that we'll learn about who have done a lot of their own research on oral histories and who are authors and that we can learn a lot from. And just a few notes, we are recording this, so if you're late, don't worry, we'll have it recorded and we'll put it on our channel just like we do all of our other programs. So if you rather not be on camera, we like to edit, we edit it out usually, but if you rather not be on camera, you don't have to. And there'll be a question and answer session too, so if you, please feel free to either type your questions into the chat and I'll monitor that, or you can just unmute yourself and ask away. So with that, I will, let me pull up my other notes that I have. So I would like to officially introduce our other speakers. So we do have Bernita Stanley Waller. She's a life member for the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. And her emphasis, she will focus on ordinary family searches, problems, and resources. We also have Betty White Millage. She's a National Charter School Administrator and Consultant, and she's an author of Engaging the Family, Reunion Planning Made Simple. And of course, Quay Chapman Reed. She's advisor to the Mississippi Hill County Oral History Collective, and she's the author columnist of Outstanding Black Women of Yoruba County. And I will post any other links that they have. I'll post them all in the chat and how to find more information about all of them in the chat. But I do want to also thank, I know this was we have several people that are new to the DeKalb History Center. This is a program that if you're a member, this is a free program, and I do thank all of the wonderful members that are on this call. To join the DeKalb History Center, it's really easy. You can do it online, you can call us up, you can send me a chat and say, hey, how do I become a member? But we are a member-supported organization, and we have our own oral histories that we collect, and we'd love to collect your oral histories too. So all of that is because of your membership dollars. We have an archives, and actually our archivist, Jennifer, is on the call here too. So feel free to reach out, and thanks for attending. So with that, I will pass it over. I believe
Bernita.
It will be first. And yeah, so if everyone would like to just mute themselves, and we'll have Bernita on the call, on the main speaker.
Well, first, thank you, DeKalb History Center, for inviting me to participate in this presentation. And of course, to Quay Reed, who proposed my participation as a member of this panel. I'll say a little bit more about myself. I am an undergraduate from Georgia State University. I completed graduate studies at the University of Michigan, and I've spent most of my career in health and medical care in the state of New Jersey, even though I am a native of Atlanta. You did mention that because of my avocational interest in African American history, I did become a a member of the Association for the Study of African African American Life and History. And I also became an associate member just for a brief time with the Society for American Archivists. And when I could no longer participate in that, I floated my interest and passion into enrolling and completing a certificate program in historic preservation at Drew University. So this program is entitled The Importance of Documenting Our History, and it is subtitled Oral History and Family Search. One of the things that I have been most interested in, I guess from a long time, beginning with my studies and enrollment at Georgia State University, and that is that I became involved for summer work in some survey, door-to-door surveys. And as a result, you get to record demographic information, because that's usually how surveys goes: what's your name, what's your age, what's your race, and so on. And that sort of morphed into some more work later on that I will explain. I consider oral history to be the basis for family history, because you really have to get that information from somebody in your family. And it usually begins when somebody says, oh, well, who was my grandfather? Where did they live? And you're really answering the 6 basic questions of who, what, where, when, why, and how. And most of the time, no matter which question you start with, it's not that important. But whatever question you start with, you're probably going to answer all of the rest of them, because authentic documentation really includes an answer to all of those. And in your follow through and your continuing search, you are going to probably answer each one of those: the who, the what, the why, and so on. Sometimes people just want to answer the one question, and sometimes they want to do a more extensive research. They want to even, formulate a complete family tree, all the branches, as many as they can find. That is going to take a bit of time. So anybody who is really interested in doing that has to know that you're really making a commitment, and you will be coming to the DeKalb History Center looking for information, or going to some other places where information is archived. I really believe, in my humble opinion, that especially among the African American community, Roots, the book published in 1976 by Taylor, was really the instrument that inspired and ignited interest. Who am I? Where do I come from? Because so much had been lost in the slave experience in terms of names, in terms of people being transferred from their birth parents to other locations, that they didn't know who they were. And therefore, as the information passed down the line, we didn't know who we were either. So that book, and especially when it was translated into the miniseries Roots, that went on for, I think, about 8 weeks, seeing information that had been written, actually seeing authentic settings for an African village, an African family, African rituals, African hairstyles, everything about that made people really believe, oh, wow, I really do need to find out about my history. There is a history. I'm not just the person out here floating along with a name that was given to me. I may have some roots somewhere. And people began an earnest and diligent search to find them. It probably increased the travel to Africa quite a bit, because Alex Haley this was not just a book. This was Alex Haley's real story. And it was his real family that we were really seeing depicted on screen. So that engendered belief in that people could find and they could search, and they began to do that. Most of the time, you would begin by asking at least one person in your family. It could be at a family reunion. It could be at the dinner table. It could be that you're speaking to someone else who mentions something about their family. Whatever it is that gets you excited, that's what it takes to get started on a family search. I think that currently the TV series that's Finding Your Roots, that is hosted by the esteemed Harvard historian Henry Louis Gates, still keeps that fire burning. And his program has shown some of the challenges that you do encounter and somehow how you can resolve them. But of course, you know that the Henry Louis Gates has a lot more resources. He has really professional, highly trained genealogists who can look for these things. So most ordinary searches are not going to result in that kind of, as he shows, the wide chart of people's family trees. So just be satisfied, be happy, knowing that you can find some information that enlightens you and makes you feel happy about who you are. Now, some of the things that I call them mysteries and myths of families, because there's so many things that people don't know. And then there are lots of things that they don't want to share. These are the secrets that exist in families. And one of the things that I have learned from the Finding Your Roots series is that many people, no matter who they are, celebrities, athletes, or no names, as Pastor Reverend Lowry used to say, the some D's and the no D's. So those people who don't have any special place in the world, any special place that we know about in the world, may be linked to some very important people if you could find out their true origins. So I say that to say that you may encounter something that disturbs you. I have noticed from the program that there were several. I'm just going to mention a couple of the people that I did recall, like Jay, whose parents did not turn out to be his parents. The link, something in there was not correct. Estepatha Murchison, actress, who discovered that her link to her family was tied to a university. You may know the story. I'm not going to repeat the story, but that was the case. And she was highly disturbed on film, as they recorded that a religious organization could enslave, who was seeking freedom, religious freedom, could then enslave other people and then sell them so that they could maintain their institution, and leave her and her family not knowing who they were, how they got from one place to another. So she was very much disturbed on the show. And sometimes when you find out information like that, you may be disturbed. You may, some parents are not the real parents by genealogy. And that was what was discovered for many of the participants, and not just the African-American participants. I just happen to be naming those because those, were more important to me and made me, keep them in mind. So your census search might take you somewhere that you have not known, and the people that you ask may not want to reveal it. I'm going to show you one piece that I did find. This is, and will explain, this was, I don't know, can you see it? This is a page from a 1920 census that was taken in Georgia, and it has my grandfather's name on it. The thing is that I searched diligently under what I knew to be his given name. When I actually found this piece, it was by his middle name. And then in the search where the family is listed at that time for 1920, it appears that the census enumerator is writing phonetically. And you can understand how this might have been for that time and for earlier times, because people who were illiterate up to that point could not spell, and they couldn't help the census enumerator spell either. So you may have to look for the phonetic sound of the name. You may have to look for the similar spelling of the name. It may not be what you're used to in your family, but this is what you may have to use. So these are some of the challenges that come up, and a lot of the information, in case you're interested in the DNA search too, that could be costly and may not result in what you really want to know. I think when they show it on the charts on finding your roots, you see sort of a panorama. You get an indication of a large portion of your history may be coming from Africa. Some of it's coming from Asia, some of it's coming from Europe. You don't have a direct knowledge of what that is. The only way you can really find that out is through the family search. You've got to begin with what you know about your family name. You have to, you may need to go to some of the towns that where the family says they originated. There may be documents there, property ownership, where taxes have been paid. Whatever you can find that gets you started, that is what you need to use. And you might be surprised. For example, I stopped in the small town where my grandparents originated, and now they have a small history office. To my surprise, there was a VHS videotape in which they had interviewed most of the African-American families in town. That provided a wealth of information. You know, now VHS may be not what you are able to use, but they can be converted to other formats. So use whatever you can find. And the other thing about your search when you're doing, and particularly when you're doing an oral search, the spelling of names is a definite challenge. Birth dates, and also locations. I'll give you an example from my family. I thought they lived in a particular town. When I actually was able to find this on the 1920 census record, it indicated an area. So you might say, like we hear Johns Creek here. So I'm just using that as an example. It's Henry's Creek, you know, that area where in Henry's Creek is, and that's what the area was named. And so on the record, it's not the town, but it's the area. So you just have to be aware that there are different little kinks and little twists that exist when you are on this search. It's not always a smooth search. When we look back at what Alex Haley did, believe me, that took years, years and years, and he lost a lot of information. It wasn't just a smooth stretch. When he put it together, it was a smooth stretch for us to read it, but that's what it really requires. And you may want to go online at some of the resources that are available now. Like many people know, Ancestry.com. There's also the genealogy bank. There's the family search. Many of these will offer you the opportunity to look and search for a limited period of time. And after that period of time, you may be asked to use a fee to continue. And if you need to or are interested in more genealogy, to get help and assistance, you may need to pay for that too. So I ask and think of this in 3 ways. Whatever you're looking for, number 1, set your goal. What is it that you want to know? Do you want just to know names? Do you want to know more extensive information than that? Because that will set number 2. And number 2 in your search is, what kind of research methods are you going to use? Are you going to just, first of all, you really going to need the oral interview. And I will say that with regard to the oral interview, you need to, number one, be sure that you get permission from the person. Don't just start, but make sure that they are willing to give you that information, and particularly if you're going to record them. And number two, if you're in an oral interview, just let the person speak. Try not to interrupt, try not to insert your opinions and comments while the person is speaking. Just let them be on a free roll. And number three, I would say is be sure that when you conclude your interview, that you do document it, that the person, who you are, when it was done, and have that as part of your record for the interview. I wanted to show you maybe two other things, because when you are doing the interview, after you set your goal, after you determine how you're going to go about looking for this information, then the third thing you need to determine is what kind of product do you want to have? Now, just recently, I don't know if you can see this, just recently, let's see, just recently, one of my cousins, my father's cousin, therefore my second cousin, was able to complete this small document, self-published. It's called Give Me That Mountain, regarding her struggle in pursuing ministry and the gender resistance that she received. Be sure to think of other sources. For example, I know that DeKalb History Center does have, I believe, a vault of newspapers. Newspapers are a great source. This, and as our organizational, this particular article is about my mother, and it talks about her being the first colored nurse to be admitted to the Georgia Nurses Association. This was a big barrier that had to be broken down in the nursing field. And Georgia happened to be the last state to really do that. And it was really through the persistence of my mother staying and not leaving the meeting. She just wouldn't until she was finally heard. At that meeting, when she was finally heard, they eventually voted on her membership, thus making her the first person, the first female to become a member, African-American, become a member of the Georgia Nurses Association. Other sources that you may look at include church anniversary documents. They include church programs, which often carry information about people that you may be interested in. Another thing I will show you now, I did mention that she is a nurse. She's a Grady nurse. And if you're familiar with at all, this is the famous Grady cap and the Grady cape and uniform that was worn. This is now the Grady Nurses, the Black Grady Nurses Association have put together information that they know about, and it is now housed as a small unit in the Auburn Avenue Research Library. What I want to say about this document, though, is that it has a directory of other nurses, and it carries the year when they were in the school. That means there are associates that if you can't find somebody to talk with in your family, there may be other people who were associated with your the person of interest, and you may make some contact with them. Finally, I want to talk about one other thing, and that is for one project, I was asked to be the lead on interviewing some people in one of the counties, the largest county in Morris, in the largest town in Morris County, which is in New Jersey. Most of the information about the African-American community had not been documented. Prior to that, I had done a small article for something known as the Black Issues Convention, and that had been written up. Now, I will also just tell you that sometimes without the right cultural connotation, you might get the information wrong. So the title of the article was misprinted, where I wrote grit and guts, the African American community in Morristown. And the person who edited wrote of grits and guts. So you would probably have to have a little inside information to know that that was really misinterpreted. So what happened was that article then generated some inquiry from the local county organization, the local county college, and the person who was head of Dr. Keller, who was head of the local history department, really wanted to see if the information could be documented. So the goal was that we wanted to interview the people. The means was that we were going to collect and organize them so that we could, and the product was going to be a film. Now, the local paper, which is called the Star Ledger, the Newark Star Ledger, then carried an article. And that article also gave a lot about the history. Then the New York Times also featured the same information. So all I'm trying to point out is that through yearbooks, through your college yearbooks or college yearbooks, high school yearbooks, family albums, there is a plethora of information that you can gather and begin your search with. You don't have to be the professional. You don't have to be certified in this information. If you have the interest, if you have the desire, if you have the passion, if you have the time, you can begin a family search by a simple question: who, what, why, how, when. And I would like to then conclude my remarks, and I hope that they have been helpful a little bit, because most of the time it's just an ordinary person who's trying to find out something about their family history. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was some great resources. And I would like to add too that I believe local libraries offer Ancestry.com.
They do.
They do, yeah, there's usually, it's like a library edition. So if you have a library card, they have a lot of resources and Ancestry.com there.
And I should also add that there's StoryCorps that I believe Atlanta History Center partners with. And we in the Atlanta branch of the ASALH also partner with the Atlanta History Center in that we are doing the Veterans History Project along with them. And that, of which if you want to find out, I happen to be the lead for that. That information is going to be video recorded. The Atlanta History Center will edit it, and they will ship it to the National Library of Congress, and it will be stored there. So you will have a document that anybody can look up and find the information. And I think StoryCorps does something similar too. See if I mentioned everything that I need to or wanted to, but I'll wait to see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll pass it over to Betty.
Can you all hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, all right. Well, again, good morning. And I am Betty Millage, or Betty White Millage, and I'm a native of Water Valley, Mississippi, and that famous county that, well, I call her Dottie, that Dottie talks about in her book. I'm from Mississippi, Yellowbusha County. We call it Yellowbusha. You can tell that Southern accent. But I just want to share with you, I live here in Georgia, in Hiram, with my husband, Donald, next door to my daughter and grandchildren, which has been a joy for me. I am the descendant of the Turner Ford family, and I'm gonna get a little into the generations that I represent as I talk a little more about my book. But my mother's name is Dorothy May White Turner, and she still lives in Water Valley, Mississippi. She will be 91 this August 9th. And we pray that God will grant her that opportunity. Our family history is rich with love and support. And we believe in sharing and supporting each other. And that love and support was demonstrated as I relocated from Mississippi, or specifically Water Valley, to some of the northern cities with my aunt, and then in Chicago, and then in Wisconsin, and back, and then getting married. But I did all of my formal training starting at Malcolm X Junior College, and then received my undergrad degree from Roosevelt University, again there in Chicago, in my graduate work from DePaul University, again in in Chicago. Later years, I remarried and moved to Detroit, where I received some training at Mary Grove College and a variety of other institutions. As it was introduced, I have worked with charter schools approximately 21 years and have served as an administrator, served in several positions, retired as a superintendent for particular areas. And I've worked across about 11 different areas. I think in those areas, about 7 or 8 different states. One of the things that I have focused on is that family is just so important. And I learned that early in my growing up. I listened to the young lady that was speaking before me that talked about sometimes things happen, and as you're doing research and you find out something different. Well, there were a whole lot of things that I found out that I thought I was belonging to this family, found out I was belonging to other families. But one thing I have always learned is that whomever you belong to, you engage them, you love them, and you show that support. And that's what my family has done. We started in 1989, focusing on family reunion. And it's interesting how it got started. We were sitting, my husband, now Donald, we had gotten married, and we decided to get married in our Bible class. Well, my family was not happy because we had just blocked everybody out. We got married, and the only family that were there were those that attended our regular Wednesday night Bible class. So they insisted that we have a receptionist. So we had a receptionist, and family just from all different locations came, and it was very a joyful time. But later that evening, the next day we were having dinner. And my aunt from Wisconsin said, I just don't understand why we do not have family reunions. And of course, those in the family that know me and other people that know me, that, I'm pretty vocal when questions are asked, and if I have an opinion. And I said, my response was really to be funny. So I said to my aunt who asked the question, I said, well, we don't have family reunions because we really can't stand being around each other for more than 2 to 3 days. And they all laughed. And my aunt said, it's probably true, but we need to have a reunion. And Miss Betty, you will be the general chairperson. Now, I have honored that demand, and that's how I took it for 31 years. Since 1989, I have served as the general chairperson for our family reunion. In doing our research, we look at 8 generations that we're able to document. And of course, you know, we're able to go back, know that there are more than 8 generations because other generations started before the 8th generation. But now in this family reunion, in 2018, we were able to determine that there were 6 generations still participating. And it has been a joy because what we do is, when I tell you engaging the family, that's what we do. We engage the family to make sure that the family comes together. And the way that we're able to engage the reunion or the family members over the years, what we have done is developed a board of directors. And each board member has a specific role. And we have 2 individuals. There is 11 members on the board. And we have 2 individuals. That is their primary function, to identify and trace family members. And during the reunion, there is an activity called the memorial celebration. And so what we do, we identify our loved ones, you know, who have passed on, and we love on them. And we just involve the younger generation, the little kids that are able to carry the candles. And as they have the candlelight service, the person who is the chairperson for the memorial will do the dedication. And so it is an exciting event. But growing up in the South impacted my life in various ways. It provided a strong Christian foundation and love for support. And that's not to say that because you grow up in a different location like the North or West or East, that you don't have a strong Christian foundation. But there's nothing like that, the Southern foundation. I always said, you go to Sunday school, you go to church, you go to BTU, which is Baptist training unit, and then you go and you have dinner, all on the church ground, all of the same day. And if that's not loving, I don't know what love it is, because the family made sure that you were engaged in your family. And we also pull from that the importance of fellowship. And so that is the reason why that for me, over the years, I have established family as one of the primary. I always try to deal with putting God first, but knowing that family is just important in my life. And that is why, again, that I have chosen to stick with coordinating the family reunion every 2 years and training someone else to do it. If you would just with me, I want to just kind of, I want to make sure that I get through in time so that Sister Dottie can have, sufficient time. But I just want to share with you, the title of my book is Engaging the Family, Reunion Planning Made Simple. And in this book, there is a primary, and I dedicated the book to my son. My son passed away, and the thing that he loved He loved the reunion. He could walk in a room and he could, if he did not know his family member, they would ask, who is that kid? He would have you laughing and hugging on you, didn't know you, but he made sure that he got to know you. And so what we focused on in terms of the family reunion, we set a primary vision. We set the vision, and that was to host family reunions that will connect and reconnect family members throughout the world. To connect and reconnect family members living throughout the world. And so that is partly what that Family Tracer does. And so as we do that, of course, we have the goals and we focus on that. But the book is a step-by-step process for planning a successful reunion. Engaging a family is a strategy. And I can assure you, if you implement that strategy and the way that it is laid out in this book, your reunions will grow. And you, in fact, will have a successful reunion. Have years and years of experience to prove that. Not just as a family reunion, but as an administrator, as a teacher, engaging families in children's success. You know how little children are. You know how we are. That when the children get excited, they want their parents to see what they're doing. If they know that they're going to get a better grade by doing a certain thing, and if you encourage them and love on them and get them involved, the family as well as the children, you see growth. And that is the strategy that you carry over to a family reunion. It demonstrates support and provide the tools for family reunion. In this book, there are 14 different tools. The tools start from a complete registration package. The letter, a sample letter, the registration form, as simple as the t-shirt form, all the different forms that you need. It also has, if you are trying to find a venue, that it has a specific question that you want to ask the venue to make sure that you are getting the right location. And again, keep in mind, 31 years plus of experience and support from family. We have gone through. So what I tried to do in this book is to make sure the mistakes that were made by us at the beginning, that you don't have to make those mistakes. So I always tell my grandchildren, if you're gonna make a mistake, try to make a new one. Well, same with this book would be, if you follow the book, it'll be hard to make a new one. And that's why I always tell the grandkids, do your best, but try to make a new mistake if you have to make one. So we look at the book, and one of the primary tools in this book is a checklist. I have listed about 40 items. They are in no order in terms of how you should follow them. There's no sequential order. However, what you do is you identify those items that are applicable to your particular reunion that you're planning. And you don't have to think about what's next. What do I do next? Just follow the book, follow it. It is a good planning tool for first-time planners, and is also a good resource for experienced planners. The thing is that there are 10 chapters of the book, and a quick overview is that engaging the family, setting the tone, planning the reunion structure, the planning team. If you're familiar with John Maxwell always says that you can have a strong vision and you lay it out. But if you have a poor team, in essence, you will not achieve that vision. Now, I'm stating that a little different than what he would say it, how he would say it, but that's in essence what he means. That if you you have the team. I mean, you have the plan and you have the vision, but if you don't have the right team, the likelihood you will not achieve the vision. So I tell you in this book how you need to look at your team. You need to look at pairing. You need to look at in the pairing process, how when you work together with the individuals, how one will learn from the other. There's a monitoring tool, because as you lay out your plan, you want to make sure that you're achieving the plan. So there's a monitoring tool, and there's a tool for monitoring the individuals who have been assigned the task. So that's a good process for you. The thing is, there are several quotes in the book, and I'm going to tell you two specifically. My mom is Dorothy Mae White, as I said to you, and she's 90 years old, and she said to the family, and my mom is the fourth generation, and she always said to us, love your family, share the blessings God blessed you with. And she makes that clear. Love your family, share your blessing. And the thing is, these are blessings that God share you with. I get really emotional when I go through that quote. My mom is a pillow, not only in our family, but in her community. When I go visit her, I'm telling you, the phone just ring, Miss White, we just called and find out how you are. Or the doorbell rings and there's a big basket sitting at the door. Someone has bought her something. She still likes to can. She likes to sew. She's a church going, she's a God-fearing. And right now, every night, my mother's great grandchildren, there's one that's 5 and the other was 10. They call her at a certain time of the night, and the other ones are 11 and 12. There are two different families. My mom has prayer service with them. She prays with them every night. You can't call my mom at a certain time because we know that's her prayer meeting time with her grandchildren. And they call. And when they have little friends over and they try to get them to pray, the youngest one says, he just told, this was on yesterday, he told his friends, look, he's 5, you can participate or you can be quiet. So we just laugh. But the whole thing is, and then I always think about the quote from Desmond Tutu, who, as you know, is the African leader of the apartheid. He always said, when you look at their struggle, you don't choose your family. They are God's gift to you as you are to them. And the thing is that is the thing that we need to focus on. God gives us the gift of family. We don't choose our families, but we have to love on our family. And this book was an inspiration for me to write, to show my family that there is a legacy in family reunions, and you need to carry them on because you love on your family. It doesn't mean, and this is a simple way of doing it. It's not a very expensive. You decide the level that you want. So again, I'm monitoring the clock too. I want to say thank you. And the book is available on Amazon if you're interested in getting it. It's called Engaging the Family. And again, I want to thank DeKalb History Center for the opportunity to share with you. God bless and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And as I mentioned in the chat, I'll link all of the books and any other resources that you want to include. We can send it out in kind of a post email link. So we can do that. But thank you so much. So I think what we'll do is we'll have Speak, and then we can do a little Q&A with all the presenters at the end. So that way, if anyone needs to head out, they can. But we still have some time, so we'll do that, and then we'll do a Q&A with everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I'm just going to try to summarize some of my points. For those who do not know me or haven't read enough about me already, I graduated from the University of Mississippi, and then I worked there as a recruiter for 3 years. And then I went on to East Tennessee State, still in student personnel. I worked for the Wall Street Journal and McGraw-Hill, and then I retired, and all along the way, I was doing my own thing in terms of business development and consultation. So I have just kind of accidentally fallen into this family research and oral history arena. And it came basically through a newspaper column in my hometown paper in Water Valley. And that turned into 45 articles later and my book. And it started in June 2018, and by October 2018, the University of Mississippi wanted to collaborate. That was my alma mater, and they provided students who then started interviewing families in my hometown. And now it has developed into what we're calling the Mississippi Hill Country Oral History Collective. And the young PhD who's running that program is planning on covering 30 counties in North Mississippi, where he'll be sending graduate students to interview families. And they just completed interviewing about 20 families in Yalobusha County. So that is a part of the Mississippi Collective project. And I'm very proud to be still working with those young folk, because, you know, they keep you young, and that's important. One thing that's been happening recently, since the book was published, is I'm getting calls from people who want to find out more about their families. And they do a lot of what Bernita said. They go to the Census Bureau and they pull out those pages that are handwritten, and they try to read it and try to figure out, well, you know, who is this and where do I go from here? So I've gotten 2 of those calls recently, and I asked one gentleman, I said, how did you reach me? And he says, oh, I just put in Yalobusha County and your name came up. I'm going like, oh, wow. So we're taking credit for putting Yalobusha on the map. But anyway, out of those 2 calls, I was able to help one gentleman to connect with people in Coffeyville, Mississippi, which is one of the towns in Yalobusha County. So people are really looking to make that connection once they find that Census Bureau information, and it all seems to be somewhat distorted. But I'm glad that people are reaching out. I should mention also that the interviews that the students have done in Yalobusha County are being archived at the University of Mississippi. And most of the students are working through the Center for the Study of Southern Culture. I think when I started writing my articles about outstanding Black women in Yalobusha County, I realized that aside from the census information, usually the obituaries were the only pieces of information that people could use, and sometimes that can be very frustrating. Therefore, oral history and oral interviews become even more important, I feel, because now, you know, you're talking to people who are in their 70s and 80s, trying to find out about people that were born in the early 1800s and 1900s. So that can be very frustrating. But I think we should be encouraged because there's so many new tools out there, but the oral interview is essential, as well as the technology. And the students that I've been working with, they're doing all of that. They do the face-to-face interviews, they record, and of course, once you do the interviews, the next step is to transcribe it. So all of the interviews that the students have done have been transcribed and are being archived at the University of Mississippi. So it creates a record, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Part of my goal when I wrote the initial articles, and with the collaboration with the University of Mississippi, was I felt that my hometown being only 18 miles from the university, we had to have a stronger connection. And I think that we have established that now through the work that they're doing at the university and archiving interviews. Most recently, one of the grad students was able to write a 3-part Black history series in an online publication and in the newspaper based on those archived interviews. So that's why it's just, I just think it's so important now for us as a people and to try to document some of these things. I laughed when Bernita mentioned the misspelling of her grandfather's name, I believe, because I have a copy of my grandmother's marriage certificate and her name is spelled 3 different ways on her marriage certificate. So, you know, it's just, it's not surprising. I'm sure others have stories like that as well. I think that is really all I wanted to share because I know that time is of the essence, but all of the backing up, as I should have said before, you know, the articles that I've written are all compiled in my book as well. And I've really stumbled into the oral history process and I'm really enjoying it. And I think it's very valuable and a very valuable tool because if we don't tell our stories, they'll just be lost. And there's, you know, and we talk about the family reunions and interviewing those folk who are at the family reunions and documenting those stories the same as you do StoryCorps and other tools that are out there. It is so very important. So I just want to say thank you to the other presenters and thank you for Marissa for having us. And it sounds like you need to have us back.
We can definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. So with that, love to do if anyone has any questions. And while maybe you're thinking of a question, I wanted to ask the presenters something I've been thinking about recently. I actually listened to a podcast talking about it where they discovered a pancake recipe from Rosa Parks, and it had peanut butter listed in it. And a lot of people were a little confused about it, not sure. But it turned out that, you know, she's from Tuskegee, and this recipe really showed a lot of history and where she was from. And I wanted to ask if there's any kind of unusual places that we can look for either our family history, like recipes, you know, maybe a different ingredient that has been passed down that can kind of show, you know,
we'll definitely include the family Bible. If there is a family Bible, many people, especially in the much older generation, did keep birth weights, dates, and they also included deaths, you know, in that Bible. So there are some that are still left, and people do have them. And if you just mention it, they'll say, "Oh," and go look for it and show you that information. But you're right on the recipes, because in some of the books, I know that my mother participated in a gathering. Sometimes the churches have done these as fundraisers, and inside it, when they duplicate the recipe, they also sometimes mention something about the person who wrote it, you know, who developed the recipe, and they tell you, oh, they had it for this long and it came from this other person, and so on. So you're right about that. But while I'm speaking, I did want to just also say that your photo, if you have old family photograph albums, those are a good way. When I was younger, I took an album and I dedicated a section to each of my mother's siblings, and all of the photos that came in, like, you know, the school day pictures. So over the years, I put, as each year went by, I would put a photograph of a particular child in the book. And it is a great record of the whole family, you know, from a certain period of time to now. And you may also find that in your local history department at a library. I did one for through my sorority, going through 6,000 photographs that a commercial photographer donated to the library. So, and my assignment was to look for African-American images at the time. And once they were compiled, the local historian then created an index so that when you're looking for something about African-Americans and the Ku Klux Klan, there might be something about that. You're looking for African-American children, you could find that. So everything that was found in that particular collection.
Mhm. Mhm. And the archives is definitely an option. And I should say that I am archiving 50 years of my stuff at the University of Mississippi.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
If I could, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, I'd also like to say that one of the things that we have done for our reunion is we have an auction. And I think it was in 2016, the reunions from 1989, and of course I said we had them every 2 years. We had T-shirts. So one of my sisters, well, two of them are seamsters, and one took the T-shirts and made a quilt.
I was gonna say.
And so, of course, that quilt at the reunion went for like almost $400 because we all kept bidding on it. And
That's a
I
great
won't tell
memory.
you. I won't tell you who ended up with the quilt.
We know you did. We know you did. That's so wonderful.
I had to do a little saving to have that quilt, but it is a family heirloom. And also, one year we also had family members to sign a quilt piece and date it and their names, the family members. And that is also a quilt. And that quilt was auctioned off.
Mm.
So,
And you know, Betty, I have to say too, on the picture that everybody's seen now 1,000 times, the cover of my book, my grandmother is the lady that's wearing a white bonnet, and they're standing on the courthouse steps in Water Valley, Mississippi. And do you know, I've sent out several inquiries, but nobody can identify the other women. There must be, 15 or so other women standing there, and they're holding a bag in their hand. We don't know if it was some type of giveaway, but I mean, that's why it's so important that we try to document and identify, and so we wouldn't have this question, because they all are beautiful women with their hats and everything.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And Jennifer, I don't know if she's still on here, but she might be able to speak for a second. I think we have quite a few family histories or family reunion documents, and your local history center, including us, we're a great resource for storing some of that information. And if there comes a point where no one is taking the baton for documenting all of this research that you did, there's a lot of history centers that have archives that will gladly safekeep that material.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I can say that I talked to the librarian at the University of Mississippi recently, and she said a graduate student had already come in and used some of my stuff. I kept all this. I was in school in the 70s, so I have audit books with pictures of when the Temptations came and when the Temps came, and there's some James Meredith stuff in there. So I felt really good that it's already being used and it's not complete yet. So.
It's great.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from anyone? And anyone can feel free to unmute themselves. And
I saw in the chat that someone asked about the census, and I would just recommend that you check something like Ancestry.com or genealogy and put in what you're looking for. And if you don't get it, there is usually the help box, and they will help you look for what you're looking for.
Mm.
I hope that answered somebody's question. I just happened to see that one go by.
I have a question. This is Wes.
Hey, Caroline.
Hey, Clay. Said, she was just talking about we could put information about our family or any document that might come together as a result of our research in the DeKalb History Center. Would that then make it available via internet? So that people, because my family is mostly in Florida. Would it then be searchable?
Are you answering it, Marissa?
Yeah, I want to see if Jenna doesn't look like.
Carolyn.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We want to make as much stuff as possible available to the public. I know for us, if it's not just publicly searchable, that's because we haven't had time to make it public yet. But, you know, your archivist and our archivist is more than happy to scan any documents, photos, and pass it on. It's we're really just a place to store your public documents. So we want to share it as much as possible. So like I said, if it's not already kind of, we can certainly make it publicly shareable. And we do that with a lot of things. It's just, that takes time, but we can always, you know, scan it and share it and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Carolyn, the University of Mississippi is digitizing everything that I'm sending to them as well. So I know it's possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Digitizing is a wonderful tool, but it just takes some time.
It does.
So boxes and boxes of photos, man, that can takes a while to go through and label them, and yeah. All right, well, I want to thank you so much, and we'll definitely chat, and we'll definitely do something again, and I will post any other extra resources and information about how to find any of the books and documents afterwards. Once we get this recording done and shareable, I'll share and I'll send an email to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so
you.
much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.